So, Doug, you've had a really cool career. 31 years at Ecolab. 2004, you get the CEO job, right? 2003? I don't know, fix Wikipedia page. You get the CEO job. And so that has allowed you to talk to a lot of other CEOs over time. And we were talking last night about having been over at Davos. I'm just sort of curious, you've been there many years in a row. Has the conversation changed, like from 5 years ago or 10 years ago, when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to ESG?
Oh, absolutely. This year, I think the crack was, Klaus Schwab thought he was in control, but Larry Fink took control. Because Larry's letter had come out the week before Davos this year and really hijacked, I would say, most of the conversation. And so, the conversation, look, I think there are companies that were early on the journey. They remain leaders in this area. Many more understand, I believe, the imperative here than did prior, and are now trying to understand either how they engage, what their responsibilities are, and then we're all trying to figure out what reporting responsibilities are going to be longer term. But I think that's, honestly, it's important, but it's less important than actually doing something.
So, let's talk about doing something. While you were over there, you announced a new global water resilience initiative. Is it new? What is it? And, we have all these people who are going to help you get to other companies and sign them up.
Well, I would say over the last really 2 years, there are a number of groups that are helping drive awareness around water challenges. And I know you all know, but we're going to have a 40% mismatch between supply and demand of fresh water as early as 2030. And we're already at a situation where 1 out of 9 don't have access to clean drinking water in the world, and many more, double that, live in water stress. And by 2030, you're going to have 75% of global GDP in water-stressed areas. So this is coming. And somebody described if climate change is a shark, water are the teeth, and it's the first thing you're going to feel. And I think it is a good way to think about it. Water is going to be too much salt water, cities underwater, too little fresh water, and it's going to have real repercussions. So we want to keep raising this awareness. We believe it needs equal footing with carbon, not in lieu of, but in addition to, because of, it will be the first chapter. And oh, by the way, if you reduce water, you reduce carbon too, so they're synergistic. So this idea really was, how do we get a coalition of the willing, and there are many people doing great work, but help lead and help others understand how to do this, why they should be thinking about it differently, et cetera. So we worked with really ultimately Jason at the CEO Water Compact and started saying, can we reinvigorate, use this as sort of the forum, since people have already joined, but start creating targets like 50% reduction in water-stressed areas by 2030 and 100% by 2050. Sound familiar? So we want some, if you will, simplicity around the messaging, people understand, and what this coalition will really focus on is, one, within your own units, let's start driving water savings now. Second, you really need to work watersheds. So how do we build local coalitions to work watersheds, particularly those that are most severely impacted at this point in time? We also want to help access the 1 in 9 that don't have water. How do we use this forum, the money saved, to feed organizations that are helping access? And then finally, education and get the word out broader than it is today. And so that's the idea. We've got a number of big companies already sign up. We have a number that are looking at it. I think we're quite confident we're going to get a critical mass, and this can be, I would say, an accelerant for what needs to happen.
So in our internet-connected world, is there a website? I mean, how do these people point their CEOs to sign up and join in this?
Well, we've talked to some. I would say right now, you're free to contact us. Right?
Should we put your phone number up?
Yeah, you can. Well, I will say there's no real secret. My email is clearly out there, and it's doug.baker@ecolab.com. I'm good at forwarding. I haven't learned that. I described my job one time as, you take care of the things that can kill you, the company, and things that can make you rich, and all the rest is email. And that's becoming increasingly true, I've found. But anyway, I'm happy to get it moved. We don't have a website, but you can also, through the UN Global Compact, the CEO Water Mandate, many avenues to get there. That's going to be the organization that runs this. It's not going to be an Ecolab initiative. We just want to be a catalyst to get this moving, and we've got, I think, a lot of other willing partners.
Great. So, when I was getting ready for this, I took a look at, sort of stock performance. We've had a lot of ESG discussions during the week, and boy, you're like a venture capital hockey stick, from about 2014, and then you just go like that, or 2011, I'm not sure the date. But we've had a lot of discussion around how do you engage investors more. We talked last night, Bill Gates owns 4% of your company, but when you're in Wall Street talking to the other 96%, how do you get the conversation to focus more on sustainability? Are they interested in your customers or in Ecolab's performance itself?
Well, that's changed too. Maybe as recently as 2 years ago, I would be in conferences, ESG, investor conferences, and they would ask, is this like a topic? And I would say, honestly, I don't know how many conferences I've been in to date, hundreds, and I don't know if I've gotten 2 questions. Now, that's radically changed the last couple of years. And I think there is a lot more companies or fund managers using ESG screens. Some are pure, some use it just as trying to understand resilience and potential risks out there. But it's a much bigger part. I said our personal, our journey as a company is really one, if you look at our roots, we always work to understand process and impacts, mostly around economics, but increasingly around sustainability. They're very related, by the way. I mean, if you can make something using a lot less water, you will save a lot of energy too, and the cost of making that product will come down. Now, it's not as simple as snapping your fingers. You got to re-engineer the process. I mean, this has got to become a priority in a company. You can't just say, I wish it so, and it happens. We can't do that in our company. We have to do the same. We got to eat our own medicine. And so we understand the challenges, but it is both economic and environmentally smart when you go after this. I think the reason ESG companies like us is that it's inherent in what we do. So it's not like a hobby. We do evil during the day, and we do ESG at night, and somehow we're magically equal or ahead or whatever that equation would be. And I've heard people describe their lives like that. I'm philanthropic because I really understand that all my decisions might not in the light of day. And you're like, oh my God, that's a cruddy way to live. So, I mean, we really have tried to build this. So, the more we grow, the better impact we're going to have. And people say, well, it's, natural for your company. Well, it wasn't natural before we did it. And so some of this is, how do you figure this out and how do you create that virtuous cycle? And I think once you've got it, it's recognized. I mean, we're widely held by funds that use ESG screens, but I guess I'm not yet believing that if we don't perform financially, that will remain the same. I think,
right.
I mean, but I can't invest in my company if I don't perform financially. I got to create more cash to invest in R&D, to invest in talent. I mean, it doesn't work without increasing your capabilities, right?
So we've talked a lot about environmental, and I also took a look at your board composition. Pretty good, diverse board, but you've never really reported or set goals around sort of the S in ESG. So I know that you're in the process right now of evaluating what type of goals to set. There's been a lot of discussion here this week around diversity and inclusion. I just wonder what's your sort of lens, both within Ecolab, and then you serve on a number of other boards, and so what you're also telling other people about what you're seeing in terms of inclusiveness, the more social aspects of this.
Yeah, well, we have real goals internally. We just haven't made them public, which is going to change. And, some are complicated, some aren't. I mean, women in leadership, why don't we start at 50%? That's, the goal. It can't be, well, the pool's this and that and everything else. So, I mean, some of these are not going to be hard to articulate and go out, and we're not there yet. I mean, we've improved every year, but we've got a long road to go. Here's how I view. I think more, okay, do we always like the request to publish everything? No. And I think it's more just human, but I don't think it's the right response. I mean, the truth is it will be healthy, and it will draw attention. Some things are more public than others, so certainly board diversity is quite public. You usually have a picture on your annual report. It's sort of hard to hide from it. And our board's evolved hugely. Right? When I took over 15 plus years ago, we had one woman, no people of color. We have 5 women today, 2 people of color. I mean, it's a completely different board, and it is generationally, but it's a great board. And there is this idea you sacrifice one for the other is completely stupid. And it's just not borne out by anybody who's really gone on this journey. I think everybody who has says, yeah, you know what, my board's better than it was as a consequence of this, which is what we all preach when we talk about diversity and inclusion. But I don't know that everybody believes it to their core, when you get down to it. But if you experience it, right, it will start changing people's perceptions. I know it's changed people on my board's perceptions, I'm sure. I mean, this isn't confession time, but I know it has.
We can have you lie down on the couch and you could,
yeah.
We can analyze how things have been going.
But I think that's important. So I think the fact that S criteria is going to also be a requirement or expectation is going to be good.
Great. So we have our sidebar over here. The light went up, so I'm going to see, Heather, do you have a question for Doug?
I do have a question. Yes, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your willingness to speak to this audience. The question is, how do you address environmental, social, and governance issues on your quarterly earnings calls, right? So you have an opportunity to influence the people who cover these issues and who are advising people, all those analysts that are on those calls. How do you address those issues, and how might that change moving forward?
Yeah, I think it'll change a lot moving forward. I would say the focus of the call, I mean, what you have as an audience is principally the financial analysts covering you. I mean, and there'll be a few other fund managers on there listening in or listening to the recording of it. Yeah, I would say I don't touch on it every quarter that we go through. It typically talks, but I touch on our investments in R&D every time. I touch on our investments in talent, investments in foundational technology, because it ultimately is what enables us to up our impact. So when I do any kind of formal presentation for any group of investors, I always talk about our impact. And our impact in this case is particularly environmental, and how we do it, why it's important, how it leads to resilience of customers, how it leads to economic benefit for customers, and how it improves communities. So that's a core message that we've been on for years, and I would say is much more resonant now than it used to be. But more in the, what I would call presentations like this, than necessarily on quarterly calls, but it rises up in every couple of calls.
So you bring up a good point about your investments. Is there a big push in what you're looking at in terms of digitization and sort of the automation of what you're doing? Because looking at your 10Ks, 10Qs, you're actually highlighting that you're investing more in digital. So what is that investment?
Yeah, well, it is exactly that. A lot of this is, we've got a lot of data that we capture. It is, how do you bring this to life, get it into the cloud, make it uniform, and use this to drive improved behavior and performance in customers' facilities. So, look, we're throughout the beverage industry in the world. We're out through, brewers around the world, steel mills, paper mills, I can go on. And we have a very good view of best performance and what I'd call worst performance. And just in the water world, that could be 5 and 10x difference. Somebody can use, literally, you can have somebody using 10 liters of water when somebody uses 1 liter of water for the same application. And you have even huge divergence within companies, right? Some of it is age of plant, but it's infrastructure, it's awareness of management, it's a whole host of things. So we try to use best in class. How do we drive this? What's the performance? Increasingly, what we're able to do is we're monitoring 50,000 industrial sites 24 hours a day right now in Pune, India. It's hosted with a bunch of engineers where we can help people like prevent mistakes, prevent leaks, prevent carbon leaks because of water misuse, et cetera. And this has proved to be hugely effective. So how do you keep down that path? So digital's been a huge investment over the last 5 years, and I would say it's probably going to continue to rise for us. We want it to help our customers first. It will automatically drive efficiencies. But if you go after the efficiencies, you're going to miss the whole, I think, bring benefit side of the equation.
Great. Do you have another question, Heather?
Yeah, you're talking to an audience of professionals that can help their CEOs and C-suites better understand their world. What advice would you give to them about the things that they need to bring to you, so people like you, to capture your attention, to engage you better? We have a lot of great private company examples. I am so happy that you're a public company because I think it sets a wonderful standard. How can they talk to their CEOs and C-suite?
Well, I'll answer it, and I'll first say, I'll give you mine, but there's a number of companies, public, that I think have done a great job in this area over the years. I mean, water in particular, if you want to, Coke has been a leader in this area for a long, long time. It was the first to put water risk as one of their corporate risks in their annual proxy. And that was way ahead of anybody else and went to a water neutrality goal and did some other things. And so, there are plenty of companies that I think have done a very good job here, and they're obviously connecting their operations with responsibility and all the rest. So that's an avenue. I think personally, Emilio's here, and Emilio is our SVP in charge of sustainability. And Emilio came over in an acquisition when we bought a company called Nalco, which really gave us this huge footprint to run a bunch of ideas both Nalco had and we had pre-acquisition and make it a reality. And so I would say there's regular meetings. What do I want out of Emilio? One, I want to understand what the conversations are, what's going on, what's he hearing. He's meeting with different people than I am. The challenge for all CEOs is you get in this little group and we'll go to CEO conferences and CEOs talk to CEOs, right? We all read the same damn stuff. I mean, honestly, you find it kind of like, okay, well, that was not particularly enlightening. I mean, it can be. It's much better to have people who don't have our jobs telling us how they're thinking, what they're hearing, and what's going on. And so I think it's important. I want, look, am I perfectly receptive every day to every idea? No, because I'm a human, right? And some days I'm better than other days. But, mine is I need people to sometimes, if it doesn't work naturally, then get in my face. And, we've got to go face facts, face what's going on. Where are we good? Where are we not so good? And that we need to understand it and deal with it. Either admit it and try to fix it or get fixing it or whatever the situation is. So I think it is, I would be kind of aggressive and work it. I think there's huge value here and it's only going to become more important. So whatever led you into this job, you should be thankful for that because you're in the right job at the right time. And we are in a historic time, I believe. There is going to be huge transformation required over the next 10, 20 years. And we're all either going to make it happen or not. And I would say, if big business doesn't drive this, I don't think it's happening. And it's not that big business is not, doesn't have its own problems. But this is a huge scale problem. It's a big innovation problem. And to solve scale and innovation problems, you need scale and innovation operators. And we've got to get big business moving on this stuff or it's not going to happen.
Great. Well, we've run out of time, but everyone please thank Doug Baker.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks a lot.